Hi, I'm Larry Conway. Now the camera's on. Anyway, I do this in part because of my experiences when I was an Army chaplain. Also taught at the U.S. Army Command and General Staff College. Started a course called Roots and Causes of Conflict. Why do people fight? Looking at belief systems, looking at economic factors, political factors, sociological factors, an interdisciplinary approach, and I have kept up with that. I mean, the Army even paid me to go to Princeton and spend a year dealing with religion and conflict, specifically. So, we're going to look at this week North Korea, next week Syria and Iraq, and the following week the South China Sea, which is starting to pick up a little bit in the press. It's one of those conflicts that could start World War III at any time. This is kind of simmering right now.
Yeah.
We don't hear much about the actual conflicts that happen from time to time there. But anyway, looking at it in terms of beliefs, because I would argue that facts are secondary to beliefs. That may sound crazy, but if you believe something, you're going to act on it, even if it's untrue. If you believe X, you're going to act as if X is true, even if X is false. So what the main actors or characters believe about themselves, about the world, etc., has a major determining factor, I think, in terms of what they're going to do and how they're going to behave on the world stage. And very simple, please feel free to interrupt at any point. Okay? If you have the courage to ask, I have the courage to try to answer. Or admit I don't know. Okay? Off the bat, any questions, concerns, comments, observations? Okay. All right, hold on. There we go. Short version. This came from the BBC. They have a long version. So if you go to the BBC website, you can get the long version. Oh, I'm sorry. I can't be bound to a camera.
Your director is telling you.
Yes, my director here is telling me, stay in front of the camera. Okay. All right, I will stay in. No.
I like it better.
I just told her it's her job to move the camera, not your job to stay put.
Ah, okay.
But see, if you stand there, then I got
Yeah.
both in.
This is after World War II. Japan had ruled Korea for many years, and that's a big part, I think, of why North Korea is the way it is. Ends World War II surrender. Korea is divided between North and South. North Korea invades South Korea in 50, almost takes South Korea. U.S. intervention primarily the reason why they did not. And in the South, and the U.S./South Korean forces almost took all of Korea. Then China got involved and wound up roughly where it started, pretty close to the original border. 94, the founder, the eternal president of North Korea, Kim Il-sung, dies, and he's succeeded by his son, Kim Jong-il. He liked to wear the khaki tops and had a great fondness for American movies, of all things. 98, the first missile, a summit, attempt for peace in 2000. There's been a number of attempts since. None have really gone anywhere for any length of time. We named them part of the Axis of Evil in 2002. North Korea withdraws from the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty. They had signed it way back. They dropped it. And then they start underground testing. And Kim Jong-il dies, and he's succeeded by his youngest son, Kim Jong-un. Kim Jong-un is the current leader of North Korea. The reason why it's Kim Jong-un is the eldest son was caught trying to sneak into, this is true, Disneyland Tokyo with a fake passport. And he was caught. And Daddy, Kim Jong-il kind of was rather upset at his latest debacle and had done a series of other mishaps and said, nope, he's not it. The middle son was considered too effeminate, so went to the youngest son. Daddy thought he could be brutal enough, and so far he's proven that. So Kim Jong-un. Here's the neighborhood. North Korea, capital Pyongyang. Seoul, 30 miles to that border. That plays a role.
Yeah.
Because right up in here, North Korea has thousands of artillery pieces that can, in, 45 seconds, hit Seoul. And that is the capital, and also the main mercantile center as well as the capital of South Korea. But you can see the other people in the neighborhood: Russia, China. Japan's not that far away either. So all of these countries in this area have a vested interest in what's going on here because they're awful close. Also, Vladivostok. That is Russia's main far eastern city, its main far eastern port. It's about the best deep water port they got because as you go up, whoop, okay, come on back here. Come on, up the other way. Let's go back one. Come on. Come on. There we go. If you go up this Russian coast, there's not a lot until you hit areas that are icebound.
Well, they're almost together there.
Right here? Yeah, there's a little bit of Russia that borders North Korea. That's the sliver. There's been talk of a rail line going through here recently. Almost all of North Korea's trade and connections are through China. If China stopped trade with North Korea, the North Korean economy would implode. So that's the neighborhood. Observations? Questions?
In this recent UN agreement, what they consider fairly strict sanctions, correct me if I'm wrong, China signed off on it after they backed off on a couple of things? Is that
Yes,
right?
the original U.S. proposal was stricter. China and Russia both asked for it to be watered down a bit. U.S. agreed and it passed. However, does that mean China is going to do what it said it's going to do?
Yeah.
Does that mean Russia is going to do what it says it's going to do? The history would say, maybe.
And if they do what they say they're going to do and agree to,
Mhm.
do you think it packs quite a bit of punch, or is it kind of...
I will quote Vladimir Putin, or paraphrase Putin. North Korea would eat grass before giving up their nuclear weapons. We have a situation here where I think we've got a choice of bad options, but some are worse. Politically, this is North Korea. Capital is Pyongyang, right in here. This is a very mountainous area. You notice how there is not a big infrastructure of roads up through here or up in here due to the ruggedness of the mountains. It does not have a lot of agricultural land. Most of the agricultural land in Korea is in South Korea. This used to be the industrial heartland of Korea when it was administered by the Japanese and before. It still has some industrial might, but nowhere near what it once had. The Kim government hasn't been very good about economic development. Their foreign policy is a military-first policy. First resources, first of everything goes to its military. So the domestic and the economic aspects have suffered greatly. Going back a little bit further, the last 1900, here's the Chinese Empire. Note that it includes Korea, Mongolia, Tibet. Why does China claim Tibet? Because it once controlled Tibet. There's other times in the history when Tibet's been independent. This was French through here, French Indochina. Siam, Thailand was independent. This is all the British Empire. Afghanistan is a buffer state to keep the British Empire and the Russian Empire separate by mutual agreement. Korea has had a long history of being occupied by other powers. There was a time of a united Korea. There was also a time when there were 3 separate kingdoms on the Korean peninsula. But it's a country that deeply wants to be united, and very rarely has it ever been united in its history. This brings it in 1905 to 45. 1905, Japan takes Korea. Becomes part of the Japanese Empire. Japanese treatment of the Koreans was brutal
What
by
year
any
was that?
measure. Yes,
What year was that?
that was 1910,
Okay.
before the First World War. It went unchallenged. There was a strong attempt to try to make everybody in Korea Japanese, speak Japanese, think Japanese, Japanese culture. They tried hard to introduce Shinto. The Korean population resisted it. There were even places where you could be arrested for speaking Korean in Korea. So a very brutal attempt to destroy a culture and a people, which ultimately failed. However, you've also got 31, when Japan invaded China, took over Manchuria and set up a puppet state called Manchukuo. And then in through here, these regions during the Second World War were conquered, along with a lot of these little islands here were controlled by the Japanese. The Chinese government, which was nationalist China, headquartered in Chongqing during the war. You've ever heard of the Burma Road? Up through here. It's India now, but in through this area is to resupply the Chinese, up over some of the tallest mountains in the world. Observations, comments? Okay. Geography. I mentioned it a little bit. Very mountainous up in here, you can see that. Becomes less so as you come down through the south. Here is the main agricultural belt in this area. There's some up in here, but not as much as in the south. North Korea has always had a hard time feeding itself. If it had a modern, efficient agricultural system, it would have some challenges in feeding itself. But it has nothing near that. Political map again. Hamujam, the famous border post between north and south where they'll meet, and there's a table with the line down the middle and all of that. And again, Seoul, just to give you an idea of scale, is just about 30 miles south. Okay. Let's have some fun. Ideology. Now, I'm putting the word theology underneath, because I think the ideology of North Korea is tied up with belief statements that you could call kind of almost atheistic religion. Okay? Do you remember when the Japanese were there? For 1905 to 45. 40 years. And they attempted to make Korea into a province of Japan and change the culture. Shinto was brought in with its worship of the sun, of the emperor being like the sun. The dominant religion in North Korea was Confucianism, some Buddhism, Christianity, particularly the Presbyterian branch of Christianity. So after the war, Sung, the eternal president of North Korea, the DPRK, Democratic People's Republic of Korea, developed an ideology that he called Juche, or self-reliance, and began what in most centuries would be called a monarchy. The Kim family is the family, superhuman, the ones who can actually rule Korea. No one else has the ability, no one else has the strength, no one else can do it. So it's got to be the Kims, and there's this mythology that surrounds the family. There's all kinds of, born under a double rainbow. The heavens smiled when Jong-il was born, all these kinds of things. If you ask many North Koreans, they say they're gods, deities. So you've got an interesting dynamic going here. Traditionally, we think they're a communist nation. But can you think of a communist nation where no one reads the works of Marx or Lenin or Engels? They're forbidden. Only scholars with special permission can read these communist works. What you are expected to read, memorize, worship, are the writings of the Kim family. This Juche, this self-reliance philosophy. With it has come a whole lot of leader worship. Kim Jong-il is said to have invented the hamburger. And there's even a rumor floating around that the current dictator, oh, why do I keep forgetting his name? That's terrible. Kim Il-jung, the current dictator, does not need to go to the bathroom. He has no need to. He never has to eliminate. I don't make this stuff up, folks, honest. But, so there's, so you have this superhuman going on with this idea of Juche, self-reliance. We can do it ourselves. We don't need anybody else. We've created a workers' paradise. The rest of the world's in terrible shape. And that's what these people are being told 24/7. Every North Korean, you can see them right there. Every North Korean must wear over their heart a little pin. And it has the picture of the first two members of the Kim dynasty. It's the law. It is illegal to watch any television other than North Korean television. And if you get a TV, it can only pull in the North Korean channel.
And what is on North Korean television?
Mostly propaganda praising the Kim family, how terrible it is in the rest of the world, and how we've got to work hard or they'll destroy us.
So there's no like fictional entertainment of any kind?
Not, well, there's some, but it's, yes, but it's all politically motivated. It's all slanted politically. There's, in fact, there was a couple of Americans that were kidnapped, along with some Japanese that were kidnapped in the, I want to say it was the 50s. And they were forced to develop a film industry for North Korea. And the Americans got to play in a lot of their movies, the evil Americans. Things like that. But, it looks Stalinist, it looks very Soviet Union communist on the outside, but on the inside, they don't use Marx, they don't use Lenin, they don't use traditional communist ideology. It's all about the Kims. It's all about self-reliance. We have to do it ourselves.
What year did you say this started?
1945
45.
is the beginning of the North Korean state, under Soviet tutelage. The part of the part of Korea that the Soviet Union occupied at the end of the war is North Korea, essentially.
Okay, thank you. But is that when this Kim came in to power?
That's when the father, yes,
Okay.
the first Kim came in. But I would argue there's a lot of theology going in here. If you have a leader who does not have to eliminate, a leader who was born under a double rainbow. But let me put some of the religious aspects of that together. Confucianism is as much a philosophy as it is a religion. It's a religion that doesn't care much about a deity. It's a religion that, as far as the gods go, or the deities go, just keep them happy, placate them so they don't mess with your life, and you can do pretty much what you want to do. Confucianism is all about ethics. How does one live? How does one act in a proper society? And in terms of government, Confucianism says that there is to be a ruler, and if that ruler has what they call the mandate of heaven, then that ruler is to be obeyed and followed without question. However, if the people, and never quite spells out how this happens, but if the people determine that the ruler does not have the mandate of heaven, it is your duty to overthrow that government and put in someone else who does have the mandate of heaven. Now, if you're a Kim, what do you want to have? They do everything to show that they have the mandate of heaven. They do everything to show that they are the ones who are quasi-divinely designed or given this gift of rulership. Almost like the divine right of kings in Europe, going back a few centuries. Also, there's the idea, remember, it was under Japan for a while. They had the Shinto influence with the sun. And you will hear of a member of the King family being called the rising sun. There are thousands of places, they're not places of worship, they're education rooms throughout the country. And you are required by law occasionally to go there and to read and to study and meditate upon Juche and this philosophy. You also must have a picture of all three Kims up in your home in a prominent place. So it is a totalitarian state. You are not allowed freedom of thought in any area of your life. Most dictators could care less. As long as you don't mess with the dictator, you can do what you want to do. In Russia, as long as you don't get in Putin's way, you can pretty much do what you want. He doesn't care what soccer team you root for. He doesn't care what your clothing style is. Just as long as he and his cronies get their cut, they're happy. Not so in North Korea. North Korea is a state that wants to control you in every way imaginable.
What happens if someone tries to escape or get out of the country?
Concentration camp.
What?
Slave labor. High death rate.
Do they
They
have-
need an underground, don't they?
Do they have public school?
Yes. Yes, they have a public schools and education system. Children are taught how to handle toy rifles in kindergarten. Remember, military first. Defend the state. There's a constant climate of fear. They say they're so much stronger, we'll destroy the U.S. You hear all that, we're going to turn the U.S. into ashes, we're going to sink Japan. I think that was the latest one. They've been saying that since the 1950s. There's nothing new. But I would argue it's for domestic consumption. We're so strong and we're so mighty, but they're trying to kill us, so we have to keep our military first. Keeping a climate of fear so that people will not question and will follow the ruler with the mandate of heaven, the latest installment of the Kim family.
Don't you wonder about the curriculum in school?
Oh, the curriculum is just Juche, hard sciences.
Okay.
They are officially atheistic. There are a couple of what you would call show churches in Pyongyang. These are churches where the clergy are there for tourists. They're there to show, yeah, we have freedom of religion. See, there's a church, there's a mosque, there's a temple. And most of the time, the people that are present are paid. It's their job. Be there for the tourists at certain times. Other than that, there is no freedom of religion in the traditional sense.
Just what is the relationship, am I too early? What is the relationship between them and Japan? I mean, first we're going to defend Japan, and now it looks like they want to take over Japan. Where does Japan stand in on this?
Well, Japan conquered Korea.
Okay.
Japan ruled Korea for 40 years.
So they don't like Japan?
They don't like each other. To be honest, the South Koreans and the Japanese don't get along all that well either. There's still a lot of bad blood from the Second World War. Okay? I mean, even to the point where there is a video, I mean, it gets to the point of a Japanese invented video game called Final Fantasy VII, which was a big hit some years ago. The evil corporation in it is a Japanese name for Korea. They don't get along too well. Now, South Korea and Japan make nice, and there is trade, and they tolerate each other. But no, there's not much love lost between the Japanese and Korean peoples, even to this day. So we have this ideology that says we got to do it ourselves. Okay? We have to defend ourselves. We can't trust anyone else. We can do it. We got to do it. Now, why is Kim building nuclear weapons? Why is Kim building intercontinental ballistic missiles. Here's how far they can go now. Now, right now, we are there. Little starburst there. Yeah, we're out of range
Right now.
right now. At some point in the future, they probably would be able to range anywhere on the globe. Those are the names of the various missiles that we are aware of, the names that they give them. North Korea is a very difficult place to get information about because they don't share anything. How old's the leader? They don't tell you. Who's he married to? They don't tell you. You infer, oh, he must be married to this gal who keeps showing up next to it. You know, who's the Minister of Defense? Well, we think we know. They see no need to share anything about anything. You know, when someone's sacked or removed from office, there's no announcement. They're just gone. Somebody else is there. And so Western intelligence agencies will do whatever they can. Whenever there's footage coming out of North Korea or anything, propaganda film, anything, they examine it to try to see what the heck's going on. Very closed society, sometimes called the Hermit Kingdom.
What are the UN sanctions going to do to affect North Korea?
Well, the sanctions are to try to get North Korea to give up its nuclear weapons and to give up its ballistic missile program.
Yeah, but how? How are they?
Well, the idea behind it is,
Something about their funding, money from and the
Right.
bank?
in other words, try to cripple the North Korean economy because North Korea does not create its own oil. It's got to get its oil from China. Raw materials, technology, things North Korea doesn't have, but will never admit, because remember, Juche, you do it all yourself.
Right.
But they are dependent on China for just about everything. So if their oil supply was to be totally cut off, the economy would be crippled quickly. Kim would be backed into a corner. And do you want to put someone backed into a corner in that situation? So the idea is to tighten the screws enough that the North Korean dictator will decide to eliminate those programs, but not too much. It would cause him to say, well, I'm going anyway, you're going with me, and do something catastrophic.